Hello, this is Dread from Epic Builds. In today's video topic, we're going to be going over my new build, Lightning Blast Sorcerer Self-Cast. So, I've done Lightning Blast in the past, and I felt like I wanted to try it again, as there's been a lot of things that have changed. Like, for instance, the node front-loaded turned from increased damage to more damage, so it allows us to actually do a decent amount of single target with Lightning Blast, as you can tell. Now, this is not convergence. This is not based on the convergence node, so we will not be doing nearly as much damage as like a Lightning Blast or Elemental Nova build, but we also have chains, which means that we actually clear with our Lightning Blast, and it's very satisfying. That's like the main thing that I really like about this build, is how satisfying it is. So I've done a few other upgrades from the old version as well. We've added Arcane Ascendance, casting a bunch of spells, giving us a lot of cast speed, a lot of damage, extra Lightning Blast procs, very strong. And then of course we added Static as well to get even more Lightning Blast procs. As we want as many Lightning Blast procs per second as we can possibly get, we get up to like I believe 200% increased cast speed with all of our increased cast speed idols and stuff, which is another thing to talk about. So increased cast speed while you have Lightning Aegis idols. So this patch, idols changed. Now you can run 4 increased cast speed while you have Lightning Aegis idols, while also running 2 increased lightning damage idols while you have Lightning Aegis, and increased lightning if you have over 300 mana, which is insanely strong, mind you, because before you could only run either or. You couldn't run both, which is amazing, especially for this kind of build, as like that's a huge buff for this kind of build, because now we can get up to 200% cast speed with like no issues, which means we cast like 3 times per second, which is insane because it increases the amount of shocks the enemy has and stuff like that. And we scale a lot of damage as well now, because there's another node I added into the build thanks to a viewer who informed me that closed circuit would probably be a good idea, since we are chaining, but we're not like chaining multiple times on the same target. Having multiple chains on single target is absolutely worthless. So what we do is we run the actual node, the closed circuit, which will take one of our chains and apply it to us, but we gain increased damage and increased crit chance each time that happens. So I am sitting at 50% crit chance while I'm sitting in town, but while I'm killing things and casting my Lightning Blast, I am at a constant 100% chance to crit, which is insane, mind you, as that's a lot less crit chance I have to build on my gear. I plan on, next time I play this build, I plan on completely abusing that and seeing if we can manage to actually scale the crit so high that I don't even need to use a catalyst. So that'll be the next time I'm going to try that. But it also gives us a lot of increased damage, which makes up for the fact that we're not grabbing 4 increased lightning damage idols. In the build, in the footage you see, my build's very scuffed. I have a very scuffed setup in terms of gear. I could definitely have way better gear and idols and stuff, but as you can tell, I'm taking down empowered Orbises with like insane mods, like completely fine. Obviously, it's because Lightning Blast is insane and, you know, it's ridiculously strong, but still, it's actually amazing to see how much single target damage you can put up even without running the convergence nodes. And with that being said, let's get into the video, shall we? Alright, here we are in-game with the Sorcerer. The name is blasting through, I won't complete that. I may or may not have been a little tipsy when I created this character. So, moving on. So this build is built around Lightning Blast. So pretty much we sit on something and we cast Lightning Blasts on them. As you can tell, the damage is okay. It's like good enough, like 60-70k crits. That's really good considering that we don't have convergence this node, which all the other Lightning Blast builds are based off of, because they utilize Lightning Blast for single target while also utilizing Ellie Nova for clear. But this build is utilizing Lightning Blast for clear and for single target, with a common setup of Arcane Ascendant and Static for even more single target. But in the build here, let's talk about the skills. So you take 4 points into Arcane Power. Lightning Blast chains an additional time for each Lightning Blast you've cast recently up to a maximum. So this will make it so our Lightning Blast chain up to 4 times, which is very important because that's how we actually clear enemies This is actually our clear because like we'll cast and we'll obviously arc everywhere. This is pretty much up all the time since we're always casting lightning blast pretty much. Now we grab one node into closed circuit. Lightning Blast can now chain to you or to your allies, granting increased damage and critical strike chance. So if you click C here, and you can tell my increased damage here, as I'm casting Lightning Blast, I am getting a bunch of increased damage, and my camera's in the way. Let me move that real quick. You can tell that my spell critical strike chance is actually going up as well. And we actually get up to 100% crit chance, and we get up to a lot of increased damage as well. So that's mainly why we're utilizing closed circuit. On bosses, we don't necessarily need that extra chain because it's a boss, right? So we're not chaining to multiple enemies. And since we're not using convergence, it's not as if we're deleting a chain. So closed circuit is actually one of the best nodes in this tree for us. And we take 2 points travel into crackling speed, although the cast speed is very nice. And then 3 points into shatter shock, so we deal 120% more damage overall. Then we grab 4 points that are front loaded. Eventually we get a +2 to lightning blast, will be 5 points. So it gives us reduced damage per chain, which is only ever about 20%, but it's a net gain on all of it. And especially since on the first target, it does not reduce the damage per chain. So that is mainly why we're grabbing this, is to make our single target rather strong. 4 points into overcharge, we get the double cast chance, 24% chance, and a little bit of crit multi. Then 1 point into hypercharge, so we have a quadruple cast chance whenever we double cast. So about 6% of the time we quadruple our damage, and 24% of the time we double our damage. Pretty nice. You can very easily tell when you quadricast on an enemy, right? You can very easily tell when you quadricast on an enemy because you'll see their life just go boop, 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 boop. It's amazing. Then 1 point travel into Storm Razor. We don't need this base crit. Then 1 point into Lightning Attunement. That means on 5% on cast, it'll happen eventually. I promise you. There you go. We get Lightning Aegis. And the reason why we run Lightning Aegis is a lot of our buffs are based off of Lightning Aegis. Mainly cast speed while you have Lightning Aegis. And then increased damage while you have Lightning Aegis, which is very strong. That's why we grab this 1 point. So we always have Lightning Aegis up. We also have a few ways of getting Lightning Aegis outside of this, but this is our main source. Now, if you got +2 to Lightning Blast, you probably should put one node into this. One extra node. It's just dependent on like what you feel. If you feel like as though your damage is good enough, the +2 can go into here. So, because I only have +1 to Lightning Blast right now for this build. Now for the second skill that's most important, we have Arcane Ascendance here. So normally Arcane Ascendance, you toggle it, it drains your mana, and it makes your spells cost mana cost. Our Lightning Blast costs 0 mana in the beginning here, because because we have the -3 mana cost weapon here. So mainly what this is for is it gives us an insane increased amount of spell damage, including this as well. That's 175% increased spell damage, right? Like insanely strong. Then we grab 3 nodes, travel into power sprint. So if we stay in Arcane Ascendance for like 6 seconds, we can spend 6 seconds with haste, which is very strong because we're going to be standing still. So it's nice to have haste for a little bit, right? And then we grab 1 point into Acuity. Now, Acuity makes it so that we no longer drain mana with Arcane Ascendance, but it makes it so we can only affect a certain amount of spells. So, for instance, we only affect like 4 spells instead of like affecting as much until we run out of mana, right? Then we bump that up to another 12, so we actually get about 16 spells overall. So, as you can tell, I can sit here and cast 16 spells. And then I run out of Arcane Ascendance. But as you can tell, that's a very long time. But as like we get our cast speed up, that doesn't really matter. It gets a little bit faster. And we have a lot of cooldown recovery speed as well, so that this is only every 4 seconds as well. And this is one of our main ways of dealing single target damage, because without this, we won't be dealing that much single target damage. And another reason why we're grabbing this is we take 5 points to higher plane for even more increased spell damage, then 1 point into Superconductor. While Arcane Ascendance is active, you automatically cast Lightning Blast when you hit an enemy. So we're always hitting enemies, obviously, because our Lightning Blast, this just gives us an extra Lightning Blast. So it normally starts out at a 2-second duration, but with the Superconductor frequency here, it gets about to 1 second. So we cast an extra lightning bolt per second, which is more damage, right? Then, of course, we grab 4 points into cooldown recovery speed so that this comes up off cooldown more often. Now, for other, we have static. So the main thing with static, the most important part is we're grabbing Zap. then 5 points into Diode, and then 1 point, these are travel, then 1 point into unlimited power. Lightning Blast costs, like we spend mana when we, pretty much the way it works is we spend mana whenever we're walking around enemies and cast extra lightning blasts every second, which is very strong as it gives us another cast. So in theory, if we cast 3 lightning blasts per second, then we have another one from Arcane Ascendance, so that's 4 per second, and then we get one from Zap, which that's 5 per second. So we get about 2 extra lightning blasts per second, which increases our single target significantly. So that's mainly why we're setting up static like this. Now for teleport, it's your stereotypical tree. Flame Ward, it's your stereotypical tree, not very important. That's the most important part. Now for passives here, we take a few nodes into Scholar, a few nodes into Arcanist, because I'm capping my res with Arcanist. Normally you just pump more nodes into Scholar if you had better gear than me. 5 points into Mage for the cast speed, because we want as much cast speed as possible. Then 5 points for the crit multi, because why not? What else are we going to grab? We're grabbing 6 points at the base here of Spellblade for the increased Ellie res, your stereotypical sorcerer stuff. Then we grab 8 points into Calculated Destruction for spell critical strike chance, because we want to crit. 8 points into spell damage and get some mana regen, because when we're in Arcane Ascendance, we need to sustain our mana somehow, as when I'm out of Arcane Ascendance, our mana regen picks up. We actually get a little bit of mana regen, which is very nice. So that's why we're grabbing this. And so instead of 8 mana, we're at 10 mana per second. 5 points in Arcane Momentum for even more cast speed. As you can tell, we get a crap ton of cast speed, which is very, very strong for single target. Then 4 points, I'm grabbing this so we can get up to 200 mana, so that this node procs, or is it here? This node, so we get 15 adaptive spell instead of just 5. 4 points, you probably want to fill this out. It gives us shock chance, increased damage. 5 points into Rift Bolt for lightning penetration and damage leech. We do so much lightning damage now that this actually heals us to full most of the time, which is very strong. Lightning pen's good, but shock is better, so it's like whatever, mainly for the leech. 5 points into Crackling Precision. You could probably put more nodes into this, but the reason why I'm not is because of all that free crit chance thanks to Arcing Power, Closed Circuit, which is very strong. Then 5 points into Spell Critical Strike Multiplier, which is strong for us because we're always critting. 8 points into Arcane Ascendance, so increased stun chance with elemental spells. So since we're running Shock reduces enemy stun chance threshold by like 5% per stack of Shock, which is very strong for us as we can actually stun most normal mobs, as you can tell in the gameplay footage. And it also Ellie res, which is very important for us so we can cap our resistances. 5 points into Spellslinger for more mana regen and increase more adaptive spell damage. 5 points into Arcane Current to make our shocks last longer. Shocks deal more damage, and also as well increase stun duration with lightning spells 50%, meaning instead of they're stunned for 1 second, they're stunned for like 1.5 seconds, which is insanely strong because we're stunning them all the time. And since we're casting so much, we're chain stunning everything, which is insanely strong. So this node is ridiculous. 5 points into Archmage, obviously, for 15 adaptive spell damage. Then 4 points into Recollection for the increased cooldown recovery speed, so that our teleport has increased cooldown, and so does our Arcane Ascendant, so we can pop it more often in a single target environment. Now for gearing, we are grabbing 4 cast speed while you have Lightning Aegis right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 2 lightning damage idols. So in theory, you'd want increased lightning damage while you have Lightning Aegis, and then increased lightning damage if you have 300 or more mana. Later on, you will want to invest into the build, get more mana, get like an Orion's Eye, so you can get to 300 mana very easily, and then we can run double damage idols, which is absolutely insane. But right now, this is all I have because I don't really have anything else. Now for the helmet, plus the lightning blast, endurance, mana, very important to have that mana because later on you want to get to 300 mana. For the amulet, it's a pretty trash amulet, but you'd probably want increased damage and crit multi, as now that I'm getting so much crit, you don't need the spell crit here, so you'd rather have crit multi, increased damage, dodge, because so we're going to be standing around a lot using Arcane Ascendance, so sometimes it's just better not to take damage at all, hence why we're running so much dodge. Now for a weapon, we want increased lightning or spell damage, cast speed, shock, and chill. We want shock so that, we get more stacks of shock. Chill, because part of our damage is based on chill, although we do get a little bit of chill later on with whirling snow. You can get this later, so you don't necessarily need chill on the weapon. Then for the offhand, critical strike chances, we crit multi now, because I don't need this crit chance. The cast speed, obviously, res and dodge. For the chest, we're running chance of shock with lightning skills. This is most of our shock, because we're not running the lightning shock boots. Vitality, dodge, want as much dodge as possible. The ring, crit chance, don't really need that anymore. It could be spell damage, then dodge, and then whatever else you need. That's the flex spot. Now, I am running an exalted tier belt. You don't need this. A T5 dodge rating belt with just some extra dodge everywhere else would do completely fine. I'm just using it because I finally dropped one. Now for the ring, increase damage, dodge. Like I said, if my gear was better, I'd be like at 40% dodge just by standing here. So I dropped a really good pair of gloves. A lot of cast speed, endurance, hybrid health. You want to run cast speed gloves because you want as much cast speed as you can possibly get. Like getting over 200% is absolutely beautiful because you get up to that 3 casts per second. Then for the boots, we're running just HP. You could be running dodge percentage, probably a good idea. Then for the relic, crit multi, increased damage because you don't need that spell crit, and then res. Obviously, you want it on a scrying eye base so you get as much crit multi as possible. And that's pretty much it for the character this time. I plan on revisiting this in the future and completely abusing closed circuit, but for right now, this is like what I've done, and like I said, I will visit this at a future state. With that being said, thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you're at, and bye!